How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, there's Omarosa. So we're going to get into this. So I remember distinctly that when Omarosa was fired, it was doing retrograde. I remember that very, very well. And I and others in the royal family, we predicted that she was going to put out a book. And it's a bunch of hoopla, a bunch of hyperbia around Omarosa putting out this book. But it's always a great deal of drama around Omarosa. And there has been others who have put out books too. So, let me go over here real quick. So, old Leatherface, John Kelly. He reminds me of a Leatherface, hardcore, stiff ass. He was the one that took joy in firing Omarosa, and now people are up in arms because she's been recording folks, and I don't blame her. I really don't. Now, you have to let people know that's new to the channel, my royal family. I know sometimes I will repeat myself, but there are new people coming, and I want y'all to know. I don't like the shit that Omarosa do. I don't like how she didn't turn her back on the community, but she turned it in such a way she waltzed back in and out of communities, and she uses her charm. She's polished. She's a very attractive sister. She uses all of her assets. I know I pronounced that wrong. That's the best I could get it out. And so, people hate on Omarosa. Now, in this situation, I'm not going to be hating on Omarosa. I'm going to keep it core. I'm going to tell y'all exactly what's going on. Y'all see it's a long video. Sometimes to get to my point, it's a little bit deeper. Because some people say, wow, you're taking too long. Well, I don't time my videos. I do everything natural. So I have two videos I'm going to play. And we just going to jump into this. And after everything is said and done, I'm going to tell y'all what's really going on.
Or is she a fame junkie? What is Omarosa Manigault doing with her new book? She's making startling claims against her former boss, President Trump. But should the press take her seriously? This is a story that's going to be unraveling for days to come. Ultimately, it's a story about credibility, and it is incredible. I mean, wherever she goes, Omarosa has a reality show following. 10 years ago, she was a reality TV villain. 1 year ago, she was the highest-ranking black employee in the Trump White House. And now, she's the author of a tell-all book titled Unhinged, out on Tuesday. Now, in the book, which CNN has obtained early, she turns on Trump, calling him racist, misogynistic, and mentally waning. She's begun her TV tour on Sunday's Meet the Press, and she's shared some of the tapes that she secretly recorded inside the White House. Now, we'll get to that in a moment. But she's also calling out her former colleagues as liars.
This is a White House where everybody lies. The president lies to the American people. Sarah Huckabee stands in front of the country and lies every single day. You have to have your own back.
That is, she says, why she recorded tapes in the White House. But look, she's not excusing herself. Omarosa is saying she was complicit.
It is hindsight. But I will say this to you, I was complicit with this White House deceiving this nation. They continue to deceive this nation by how mentally declined he is, how difficult it is for him to process complex information, how he is not engaged in some of the most important decisions that impacts our country. I was complicit, and for that, I regret.
She can say that now. She's sort of playing the hero now, speaking out against Trump. That's how she's portraying herself. But her brand has always been about being a villain. Not a hero, a villain, a liar, a backstabber, and a self-promoter. I mean, shortly after she was kicked out of the White House, she took up residence on the CBS Big Brother show and hinted about revelations on Trump. And now she's out pitching her book. Now, I think the book is a big deal because she is the first Trump White House staffer to write an unflattering tell-all. But some of what she's written is unbelievable. There are basic mistakes in the text. And several people have already come out and denied specific things that she has written about them. There was apparently a lack of fact-checking, a lack of editorial rigor associated with this book, and yet you know what's going to happen. For days to come, the media is going to be talking about this book, especially the entertainment media, the tabloid press, which finds it irresistible. So let's talk about all this with our all-star panel. Indira Lakshmanan is the Newmark Chair at Journalism Ethics at Poynter and a columnist for the Boston Globe. Jeff Greenfield is a longtime political analyst and journalist. And April Ryan, who's had some scrapes with Omarosa, is a White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks. She's also a CNN political analyst. And she's about to be out with her own book titled Under Fire, reporting from the front lines of the Trump White House. There's a lot to unpack here. Indira, first to you. How do we approach a book that has some pretty sloppy errors in the text, but is also a damning portrait of the sitting president?
Look, this is a situation where it's a mixed bag. Josh Dawsey of the Washington Post has actually listened to some of the tapes that she made surreptitiously in the White House. He's also reviewed the non-disclosure agreement that she was offered by Lara Trump and the Trump campaign to be paid $15,000 a month and stay quiet, which she declined. And Josh Dawsey says that many of the quotes in the book do match what he heard on those tapes. So clearly there seem to be some errors and some lack of fact-checking. That is a real problem. It's not confined to just this book. Let's think about Fire and Fury, the Michael Wolff book that was so explosive that we all couldn't stop talking about some months ago, which also seemed to have some basic lack of fact-checking. I think this is a problem across the book publishing industry right now as it relates to particularly stories being told about Donald Trump, that everyone's looking for the most explosive story, and we can't lower our standards and not fact-check. At the same time, there clearly is a lot of stuff in this book that was taped, that was true. And if she was credible enough to be a senior White House official, to be quoted as a White House official at the time, then she's credible enough to be listened to now at the same level. You can't have it both ways. I mean, that's what I would say about her credibility.
It all comes back to Trump hiring her in the White House over a year ago. Let's talk about the tapes you referenced. I think it's so interesting that she's using these tapes as leverage, so that when people call her a liar, she says, well, here are the receipts. Here are the tapes. April, let's listen to a part of the tape of the day Omarosa was fired by John Kelly. This was, she says, taped in the Situation Room, I guess on a cell phone. Let's listen to it and then we'll talk about it.
Can I ask you a couple of questions? Is the president aware of what's going on?
Let's not go down the road. This is a non-negotiable discussion.
I don't want to negotiate. I've never had a chance to talk to you, General Kelly.
Yeah,
so if this is my departure, I'd like to have at least an opportunity to understand.
We can talk another time. This has to do with some pretty serious integrity violations. So I'll let it go with that. So the staff and everyone on the staff works for me, not the president.
So there you go. Part of this tape recorded at the White House on the day she was let go. April, I know that Omarosa also secretly taped you in the past. So how are you processing this new tape?
Yes, she did. Well, you know, in the Washington Post article, after she edited a tape of our altercation in the West Wing that I detail in my book, factually, she passed the tapes around, and she said that is what we do, meaning that's what everyone, including the President of the United States, does, tapes people. But here's the problem. If indeed these tapes are factual, and I believe them to be credible, I was on Twitter today and I was reading some of the tweets and I saw something from David Frum after the Meet the Press interview. And I called Congressman Elijah Cummings, Maryland Congressman Elijah Cummings, who is the minority leader in the Government and Oversight Reform Committee in the House. And he said if indeed these tapes are there and they were taped in the Situation Room, at the Oval Office, and other places, this is a national security issue and he's looking into it. National security protocols were not followed. Omarosa says that she has taped in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room. We've heard the tapes. Now, I've talked to people from former administrations, and they've said you are not allowed, and I know this for a fact, when we go into OTRs with the president or a senior official, we have to put our cell phones in these cubby holes in the Roosevelt Room. In the Oval Office, you're not supposed to tape. You're not supposed to bring your cell phone. In the Situation Room, you're not supposed to bring your cell phone. In the Roosevelt Room, you're not supposed to bring your cell phone. You're not supposed to have your cell phone in the office of the Chief of Staff, and you're not supposed to have your cell phone in the National Security Office. And this leads to a broader question. Are national security protocols being followed in this White House? Because, you know, we're talking about Russia. Now you got to worry about Omarosa and then others who might have cell phones taping things, and they could be hacked. So this is not just about a book and getting paid for a book and telling all. You know, if she did the tapes, you know, we hear voices and everything. You don't know if they're edited or not. But the bottom line, and there's a credibility issue with her. I'm just going to be honest with you. There's a credibility issue with everyone. But there are tapes. And this is a national security issue. This is not just about a book anymore. She's giving receipts, and she's now in trouble.
It's a strange situation because nobody involved has a lot of credibility. Let's put on screen Sarah Sanders' statement about the book. Even though I don't think Sanders has read the book yet, she came out and said the book is full of lies and false accusations. And she says she regrets that the media is giving lies a platform. Keep that in mind the next time Sarah Sanders issues a false accusation. So it's a matter of who has less credibility, I think. And Jeff Greenfield, we also have to keep in mind Omarosa's many past statements supporting President Trump.
You know, I don't quote Karl Marx very often, but one of his famous lines is, history repeats itself. The first is tragedy, the second is farce. And if it weren't for the fact that, as April says, there are some serious national security issues here, this kind of looks like a weird remake of Dr. Strangelove. And maybe the way to approach this is, once you have a situation where someone like Donald Trump can actually be president of the United States, why should we be surprised that a reality TV star is offering a book which is now dominating the media, including, may I say, the lead of this program, in which it is quite clear, A, that her affection for Donald Trump is in direct relationship to whether or not she had a high-paying job at the White House, and second, where the most basic fact-checking in a book, not a tweet, has clearly been missed. So my feeling is, as far as I'm concerned, I want to wait for Bob Woodward's book. I'm an old school guy. I have a feeling that his credibility is a shade more strong than Omarosa's, and see what he has to tell us about how this White House operates.
Right. You know what's interesting? Woodward's book is called Fear. It's out in a month, but it's already doing well, so much better on Amazon than Omarosa's book is. You know, there is something to be said for more reporting and less of this speculating. But here's the thing about Omarosa, Jeff. She says our president is in declining mental health. Should that not be a lead story? She says he's a racist and he's in declining mental health.
Yes, except it should be, but part of the problem is that when you have comments by somebody who up to about, a year ago, was telling us we all had to bow down to Donald Trump, it makes the assertions less credible. You know, I mean, look, it's always a disgruntled employee who does this. We've never had a book from a gruntled employee, as far as I can tell, in American history. But part of the problem is, if Donald Trump is in fact in declining compos mentis, that's a serious issue. But the problem is the source of this, Omarosa, is, in my view, so compromised by everything she said up to the point when John Kelly kicked her out of the White House, that it goes to the issue of how much are you going to trust this?
Right, right. Definitely. Sorry, April, last word to you. Yeah. Sorry, April, you there? Last word to you, since you've known Omarosa
I'm here.
for
I'm
years.
sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. Yeah, I've known Omarosa for years, and we are not friends anymore. What has happened is that this White House created this monster, and it was even before this White House. You know, I would say Donald Trump created his own monster, and now the monster, he created the own monster in his own likeness, and this monster has come back to bite him. And the bottom line is, I can tell you for a fact, she was complicit, but she also did the bidding, and she wanted to prove that she was in their camp because she used to be a Democrat. And she went so far as to try to go after me. She told Sean Spicer to stop calling on me. She has done so much. She lied on me, telling people that I was taking money from Hillary Clinton to hurt my career. Omarosa did these things. She may not even talk about it in her book, but I talk about it in mine. And she did these things to support her president and to support her friend that she said she was loyal to. And the bottom line is that, yes, she was complicit, but she was doing all this knowing that it was going to be a payoff in the end for her. And then once she got upset with him, or he got upset with her, or whatever happened, she decides to turn on him. She's not a friend, she's a liar, and I would say she's evil.
I hope she can respond to that at some point soon, calling her evil.
All right, my royal family. April Ryan need to get up out of her feelings. Like I said before, my royal family, in this particular situation, I'm agreeing with Omarosa. So let's continue on, and then I'm going to close it out nice and sweet.
Good Sunday morning. She was a reality TV star who wound up working in a reality TV star's White House. By her own admission, Omarosa Manigault Newman and Donald Trump used each other. In her new book, Unhinged, an insider's account of the Trump White House, Omarosa writes, "Donald and I had a symbiotic relationship, as I've said. I gave him ratings, and he gave me, a woman of color, opportunities. That relationship started on The Apprentice in 2004 and continued through a series of reality TV shows.
I adore you. We've had tremendous success together. You helped make me a star. Dennis, she helped to make me a star. But Omarosa, you're fired."
In 2016, she joined the Trump campaign as Director of African American Outreach on the Trail, and subsequently as the most senior African American woman on the White House staff. And she became one of Mr. Trump's most vocal supporters.
When I say Trump train, I want you to say choo-choo. Y'all ready?
Every critic, every detractor will have to bow down to President Trump.
I had the honor to travel around the country with the president for the last 2 years. You all know him as the president. I know him as a friend. I know his heart.
But since she was fired in December, she's turned on President Trump, and now in her new book, she calls the president a racist, a bigot, and a misogynist, and says he is losing his mental faculties. The White House has fired back in a statement, quote, "This book is riddled with lies and false accusations. It's sad that a disgruntled former White House employee is trying to profit off these false attacks." And Omarosa has a recording that she says she recently made, that she secretly made of her firing by John Kelly.
We've got to talk to you about leaving the White House. It's come to my attention over the last few months that there's been some pretty, in my opinion, significant integrity issues.
You're going to hear more of that recording in a moment. So Omarosa Manigault Newman, former assistant to President Trump, Director of Communications for the White House Office of Public Liaison, joins me now.
Thank you for having me,
Welcome
Chuck.
to the press. Let me start with what you describe in your book as a year-long effort to learn the truth about a rumor that Donald Trump had been caught on tape using the N-word while working on The Apprentice. And here's how you wrote about confirming with a source that the tape does in fact exist. Page 322 of your book. "On this phone conversation, I was told exactly what Donald Trump said. Yes, the N-word and others in a classic Trump goes nuclear rant. And when he'd said them, during production he was mic'd, and there's definitely an audio track. For over a year, I'd been so afraid of hearing the specifics from someone who'd been in the room. Hearing the truth freed me from that fear." Did you hear the tape, or did you hear a description of the tape?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. And in this book, I describe this long journey of hearing these rumors over and over again. And when I had an opportunity to meet up with 3 different sources, they describe the same exact statements. After I closed the book, I had an opportunity to go out in Los Angeles and sit down with the person who actually has a copy of the tape. And I heard his voice as clear as you and I are sitting here.
You have heard the tape?
I have heard
since
the
publication
tape.
of this book?
Absolutely.
So you know it exists?
And I know it exists. And what I regret is that these people are probably trying to leverage it as this October surprise. I don't want to be a part of that. But I have heard for 2 years that it existed, and once I heard it for myself, it was confirmed what I feared the most, that Donald Trump is a con and has been masquerading as someone who is actually open to engaging with diverse communities. But when he talks that way, the way he did on this tape, it confirmed that he is truly a racist.
Why didn't you get that in your book?
Close too soon, and I have been tracking. This person is so afraid because of the forces who are working to keep this tape from coming out. I mean, we first heard about it in the fall of 2016, got on a conference call with Katrina Pearson, Lynn Patton, and Jason Miller, as you'll see in the book.
Yeah.
And they all suspected that it was true. In fact, Katrina Pearson, the spokeswoman for the campaign, said, "Oh, he said it. It's true."
But she never heard her say it, and she heard him say it, and
Well,
she's denied the
Is
anecdote.
she denying? I mean, she knows I have receipts. I think she should probably
me
read
ask you
the
this.
book
Had
first
you
and then
personally-
hear herself saying it.
Before listening to that tape, before getting the tape that you just described, had you ever heard him? Were you ever in his presence when he used a racial slur?
You know, I was in his presence when he said inappropriate things, but he has never said the N-word in my presence, ever.
All right, let me move on, because you said that the betrayal, the idea that he might have used this word, that it would be this betrayal because you thought it would mean that he might have used it about you.
Oh,
Do you
absolutely.
believe he used it about you?
Possibly, because Donald Trump talks about everyone behind their backs. You leave the room, Chuck, he has a nickname probably for you. He has a nickname for everyone in his administration and in his circle. So I am pretty certain that he's probably said some very derogatory things about me. In fact, yesterday, on this moment before Charlottesville, the anniversary of Charlottesville, instead of talking about how to unify the nation, he actually insulted me by calling me a lowlife. That is a man who is inclined to start racially charged engagement and use race to kind of stir up his base.
Here's what I think a lot of people are going to have trouble with. He has said a lot of racial things. He said a lot of racial things during the campaign, calling Mexican rapists, attacking a federal judge because he was Hispanic. You even talk about his obsession with the, quote, Central Park 5 mythology there, retweeting false crime statistic. All of that was taking place. And you said, you acknowledged that he did things that were racial, that he used race to manipulate people. You've said all those things. And then you wrote this in December of 2016. I am living the American dream because of Donald Trump. Look at my career, the wealth and exposure that I've had. It's very difficult to make the argument that Donald Trump doesn't like black people and black women.
Absolutely. Being used by Donald Trump for so long, I was like the frog in the hot water. You don't know that you're in that situation until it just keeps bubbling and bubbling. It's clear in hindsight, because hindsight, of course, is 20/20. But as I talk about in Unhinged, you get to see from 2003, when I first met Donald Trump, the evolution of a very unique relationship between he and I. And I talk very, very intimately about the things that he said, his pledge to do more for the community, his, as I said, investment in my own career. But what I know now, I didn't have the benefit of in 2003 or 2004 or 2010. And so, yes, it is hindsight. But I will say this to you, I was complicit with this White House deceiving this nation. They continue to deceive this nation by how mentally declined he is, how difficult it is for him to process complex information, how he is not engaged in some of the most important decisions that impacts our country. I was complicit, and for that, I regret.
Well, one of those moments of complicity took place after Charlottesville.
Oh, yeah.
This is the president. The day after Charlottesville, he condemned the egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. This is before he said the both sides comment. But he had already used the phrase many sides. 2 days later, you were on Fox News defending him. Here's what you said.
President Trump, he said that he condemned the acts. He knew that they were disgusting and loathsome. But he did not come out until the facts were known about the investigation. And today, he made a statement that was very clear and very decisive about where he stood on these acts.
What do you think of that, Omarosa?
Well, absolutely. I mean, as you said, it was
That's
before he
complicit?
started.
Was that complicit,
Oh, totally
Omarosa?
complicit. In fact, I had a blind spot where it came to Donald Trump. I wanted to see the best in him. And obviously, I felt miserably, because after that, he gets up and he says that there are good people on both sides, when he should have been denouncing what we saw as clearly racists, Nazis going against the grain of this country. And it's just really difficult to see that I was so much a part of this. And I accept and I admit that I was. But now I think it's important that as we are celebrating, well, actually observing the anniversary of Charlottesville, that he has an opportunity actually to bring the country together. But you'll see that he doesn't have the ability to do that, because he puts himself over country every day.
Here's what many people are seeing, though, that after Charlottesville, you didn't resign. And yes, you wanted to work on the, I think, Historically Black College Initiative.
Which would have been a
I understand
later,
that. I understand that. But then you didn't leave after that. You didn't leave after he had that unfortunate call with the widow of the dead soldier. You didn't leave after he called kneeling NFL players SOBs. And this is what Jelani Cobb wrote in the New Yorker about your new perspective. Her realization about Trump's outlook appears to have emerged at some point during her book deal. That's not a gradual awakening, it's a glacial, self-interested one. There's going to be many people here that say, you're now identifying him as a racist after you got your book deal. What do you say to that criticism?
Well, first of all, I need to push back about that. First of all, I am an author. This is my third book. I write about my life. I write about the things that happen in my life. So the assertion that I just woke up and decided I'm going to write a book when this is my third book, that's,
Okay.
I have to push on that. But certainly I was working to try to find someone who could take my place. I was the only African American at the table. If I left, which I did, when I left, there has been no new appointment of an African American assistant to the president, which means that people are making decisions about us without us. And as I worked to try to find that replacement, I realized that they could care less about having an African American voice at the table. And to this day, there is no one serving in that administration in the role that I was in, and that's a great void. And so the people who want to judge should probably read the book first and give me an opportunity to at least examine the journey that I was on before making decisions and judgments about my story.
I think arguments some have made, and I've heard it,
but they should read it first.
You know, part of the reason that you're there is to stand in front of the racial freight train, and that you didn't do that. And you've admitted that you were complicit.
I describe myself as a guardrail in the book. I'm not.
Were you
it's
a good
not
guardrail?
Oh, I got banged up a lot. I got banged up by people who thought that there should be no African Americans in this administration, and they're seeing the result of having absolutely no voice. That it is impacting the policies that affect our children in our cities, policies that inform all the things that are happening in regards to crime, particularly in Chicago as we see the death. Without a voice there, you're going to continue to see them neglect the needs of a community that really does need leadership right now.
All right, I want to go to your White House time, and we'll start
Please.
On your last day. Were you fired or did you resign? What's the story? What do we call this?
It's pretty clear from that recording that John Kelly came in and said, this is the end, we want you to leave. But what's interesting is they take me into the Situation Room. The doors are locked. They tell me I can't leave, and they start to threaten me, put fear in me, to put me under duress.
Look, I want to play this tape, but I'm curious, how is it? You recorded the chief of staff.
Absolutely.
The White House chief of staff in the Situation Room.
Yes.
And this takes place before the Christmas
in
party.
the Situation Room.
And you're prepared in a moment's notice to record him, or were you planning to record him the minute you found out you had this meeting?
Well, no. First of all, like I said, I'm the only African American there. When you walk into a meeting with John Kelly, who's refused to meet with me the whole time he's there, in the Situation Room, Chuck, we're not going in there to talk about, parking or scheduling issues.
You knew this was.
We're going in there to talk about something very serious.
You prepared to tape.
I was prepared because, first of all, John Kelly had been very vocal about trying to find a reason to let me go. He had gone to the press instead of coming to me, never given me an opportunity to meet with him. So the question is, why not have the meeting in the Chief of Staff's office? Why put me in the Situation Room, lock the door, and tell me over and over again, as they'll hear his part, that I couldn't leave, that I couldn't consult an attorney, that I couldn't talk to my husband who was sitting outside of the door. Yes, I was prepared. And as you'll see in Unhinged...
How often did you tape people?
Wait, Chuck. As you'll see in Unhinged, I protected myself because this is a White House where everybody lies. The president lies to the American people. Sarah Huckabee stands in front of the country and lies every single day. You have to have your own back because otherwise you'll look back and you'll see 17 knives in your back.
It looks though
That's not disloyalty. That's not disloyalty because let me tell you, Chuck, if I did not have this recording, people would still believe the false incredible story that I was running around the White House, the false story that was told by a reporter and repeated by this network and other reporters, that I tried to charge the residents of the White House, and it's a lie. If I didn't have this recording, listen, people would still think that I was trying to set off alarms. So yes, I had to protect myself, and I have no regret about it.
Let's listen to the recording.
I think it's important to understand that if we make this a friendly departure, we can all be, you can look at your time here in the White House as a year of service to the nation, and then you can go on without any type of difficulty in the future relative to your reputation.
How did you take that comment about your reputation?
It's very obvious a threat. He goes on to say that things can get ugly for you. The Chief of Staff of the United States, under the direction of the President of the United States, threatening me on damage to my reputation and things getting ugly for me. That's downright criminal. And if I didn't have these recordings, no one in America would believe me. No one. So I protected myself, and I'm going to tell you, I'm so glad I did. Because now we can put to bed all those false rumors that one reporter stated and the false reports that were spread around by the media.
All right, let me play the portion where you jump in and have a conversation with Mr.
Please.
Can I ask you a couple of questions? Is the president aware of what's going on?
Let's not go down the road. This is a non-negotiable discussion.
I don't want to negotiate. I've never had a chance to talk to you, General Kelly.
Yeah,
so if this is my departure, I'd like to have at least an opportunity to understand.
We can talk another time. This has to do with some pretty serious integrity violations. So I'll let it go with that. So the staff and everyone on the staff works for me, not the president.
You've made no bones about that. You have a lot of tapes.
Wait, he just said the staff and everybody works for him, not the president.
Right.
You don't have a problem with that, Chuck?
There's many
The
White
staff-
Houses, for what it's worth, many White Houses are organized that way, where the chief of staff
It tells you
is
that
the
Donald
lead.
Trump has no idea what's happening in the White House. He has
Are you
no
convinced
clue.
he did not know that minute that you
No,
were being
I
fired?
know he knows because I've talked to him subsequently, and he said he delegated. I delegated. So he knew. He knew that John Kelly was going to take me into the Situation Room and lock me in there, threaten me, and say that things were going to get ugly for me and there would be damage to my reputation. And you know what? The next day there was damage to my reputation because they then put out a story using and exploiting an African-American reporter to say that I was running around the residence and trying to break into a Christmas party, which is ludicrous, Chuck, and it's unacceptable. And that's the way these folks operate. When he said that people answer to him and not the president, that should be concerning for every single American that hears that.
Let me ask you about the integrity issues that he brought up. If the White House asked for permission to release your file,
I would love for them to do. I'm saying this
you're saying
right here
now,
on Meet the Press.
release the HR file of whatever violations.
Please,
make it
let's
the public
bring it
record.
all to light. I'm saying right here on Meet the Press.
Okay.
They accused me, you took a car to the National Baseball game.
So if the
when
White
there was
House
a
today released, you're okaying them every
Absolutely.
single transgression that General Kelly was referring to there?
Because in the same breath, Rob Porter is accused of allegedly abusing his wives. And you know what John Kelly said about Rob Porter? He said he was a man of great integrity. And he's accusing me of integrity violations. Please, I'm saying it right now. Release it so the American people can see that I worked my butt off to make a difference in this country, and they were looking for ways to frame me. And then they tried to buy off my silence, which is also unlawful.
All right, I want to get to that in a second. But the Daily Beast, in September of 17, when you're saying people were
Chuck,
trying
are we
to,
really quoting the Daily Beast?
I want to
Press?
ask you this. It says here that you were called the most despised person in the White House, that you would hijack White House meetings, that you would distract President Trump with negative news coverage. Could those be the reasons why John Kelly chose to fire you?
Well, at least they didn't call me the coffee girl. I mean, that's an upgrade to their usual go-to excuses that they make when they mistreat people. People despise that I was close to this president, that I had access to him, that I talked to him often, and that I influenced his policy making. I will admit to you, Chuck, there were times that Donald Trump asked me to do things that were just downright bizarre. He would say, go and pull up this article about, for instance, Joe Scarborough and Mika. I want to know about this and that. I wondered, of course, why he asked me. It wasn't his press secretary, but it was because he was working around the people who would put these guards in.
You were the one giving him the negative coverage.
I was giving him whatever.
What he
when
wanted
the
to see.
president calls you and says, get this and that for me, I did it. Yes, I was one of the people feeding him the things that he asked for because he is the president of the United States. When he calls and asks, you answer.
All right, you talked about that you were offered a job on the campaign. You have shown me the email, the offer. I have read the offer that you received from Laura Trump.
It wasn't from Laura Trump. It was emailed to me from the campaign.
From the campaign.
Yes.
And I want to put up the non-disclosure agreement here. It is a very stringent one. It said this: the no disparagement clause, during the term of your service and at all times thereafter, you hereby promise and agree not to demean or disparage publicly in any form or through any medium the campaign, Mr. Trump, Mr. Pence, any Trump or Pence company, any Trump or Pence family member, any Trump or Pence family member company, or an asset any of the foregoing own. And by the way, to avoid any doubt, at the bottom of the graph, you agree that this shall survive the termination of this agreement pursuant to paragraph 10. Did you think they were offering you a real job in the campaign, or did they want you to sign this agreement?
They were not offering a real job. They told me I could work from home if I even wanted to work. They didn't really care if I showed up. In fact, there are several former employees from the White House who actually signed this agreement, who are all being paid $15,000 for their silence. The only reason unhinged
you believe all these people that are on the campaign that left the West Wing of the campaign are being bought off?
Absolutely. The campaign, the RNC, and America First, which is why Sean Spicer was describing Donald Trump as a unicorn jumping over rainbows, because he signed this same agreement.
All right, final question for you here.
Please.
I know we're going to have some. Before The Apprentice, you wrote that you read The Art of the Deal, and your plan was to mirror his behavior.
Yes.
Here's one of the things he wrote in that book. He said, the final key to the way I promote is bravado. I call it truthful hyperbole. It's an innocent form of exaggeration and very effective form of promotion. Anywhere in this book, when you have the Michael Cohen or Donald Trump chewing up a piece of paper, any of this stuff that we should look at as truthful hyperbole?
Truthful hyperbole? No, I have documentation, a whole treasure trove of documentation for everything that you see in this book. And people should be asking, what did Donald Trump and Michael Cohen discuss in that Oval Office meeting to make him so irritated to rip up the paper that was in front of him and then put it in his mouth? That's the question the American people should be asking. What went down in the Oval Office?
All right. What do you want people to take away from this book?
I need people to understand my journey. I talk about growing up in the projects. I talk about my father being murdered. I talk about my mother, my beautiful mother, who allowed me to go on and get educated and live an incredible life. This story isn't a story that you would hear if, in fact, I subdued to those threats and signed that agreement. This is a story that you have to hear because it is the embodiment of the American dream.
Do you regret auditioning for The Apprentice?
No, I don't. It changed my life. I wouldn't have gotten a chance to get to know you and many of the other people.
That's the end of that. I know this video is long, but it's necessary. So, the tell-all book and some of the players. So what's really going on? Well, what's really going on, my royal family? They approved all of this. This woman, she may have done some foolish shit, but she ain't dumb. And she's still in cahoots with Trump and his peoples, and they is not gonna let no black woman just have free range in this country to do a tell-all book on the president. He listened to the tapes. They know who helped her publish the book. They all in it together. Everybody making their coins. And then you got these reporters. On the first video I put how sloppy it was. And whoever that lady was, you know, she was like pretty much saying, you know, all of them book be sloppy. So you can't just put that on one individual. And they did fact checking, and she's been truthful on certain things. But like she said, they all lied. This is their arena. They run the same circles. And their goal is to deceive the masses. And I'm not knocking Omarosa getting her coins. I would do the same thing if I chose to be in that type of arena. And you can learn from people that you have disdain from. And this is the type of woman you're gonna rarely catch her slipping. Rarely. You know, but I don't like how Omarosa feels like she can come live in two different worlds. And she has done some questionable shit. But the type of person I am, anytime you do any betrayal against the royal family, I'm done with you. I don't trust you. And only thing that Omarosa is doing is keeping her paper game real tight. And any opportunity that she can make some coins, she gonna do it. That's the American way. That's how they set it up. That's how they set it up. Side note, April Ryan didn't need to say all of that. I like April Ryan, but she was wrong on that. She fronted the sister off. And that wasn't cool. I mean, shit, she got a book coming, you know? They all in cahoots together. They all. So, I know it was a very, very, very long video on my royal family. So, do what you do best. Render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.